Hi guys.
I feel like this is long overdue. I've been wanting a Yaz on the podcast for so long. And when we were in New York, remember how you were like, let's record in New York, but we literally had like no time. And also, I don't know what we were thinking, but...
Yeah. Like we had like just the Cos show together.
Oh my God. But I also feel like I got sick at the end, and also you were just like a social butterfly, you know?
It comes with my Sagittarius tendencies, you know?
Like, no, I love it, but you thrive in that. I do. And I also knew that when you went to New York, like I knew that you would fall in love with it.
Yeah.
So it was like...
Yeah, well, I'd been before 7 years ago, and it changed my life. Like that trip, it was 3 weeks, and it was where I shot, you know, some of the portraits that people still reference and still get me work, which is like Brianna King and everyone at, I think it's called Blue Park, the skate park and stuff. And so like, it was such a formative time for me the first time I went to New York because, I just kind of wrapped up everything I was doing in Bondi in that hype house, and we'd all gone our separate ways. My God. Okay. And I booked a ticket to New York and was like, I need to go find myself and figure out what I'm doing.
Oh my God.
So New York already had a really special place in my heart because it was that place that I went to, and I would have been about 25 at the time. Yeah. And it was always, I think it's everyone's dream to go to New York at some point, every creative at least. Yeah. And so many amazing things happened there where it was just people responding to my energy. Yeah. And I'd never really experienced
As in like this time round,
just
or
in general.
Just whenever you go.
Yeah, there's something about New York that people vibrate on your energy and they get it back to you. Sorry, I just touched the mic.
No, you're fine.
Whereas when I came back to Sydney after this recent trip, I definitely went into a deep, I don't want to say deep depression, but like that's a bit dramatic, but I really struggled. It felt like whiplash, like a massive whiplash where, you know, I landed in a place where people were just excited by me. Yeah. Regardless of knowing anything about who I am, what I do, how many followers I have, like none of that shit. No, people were just vibing on my conversational abilities, my energy, how I was showing up, like how I walk, how I talk, like, which I don't think I've really experienced in Sydney very much. And it becomes blatantly obvious when you come back from New York. Come back to Sydney.
100%. We were just saying this, obviously we'll start at the beginning, but we were just saying before we started the episode that I was also in New York for Fashion Week, and I felt that there was so many like Aussie girls there, but the way that I was able to just like connect with people was just so different to Australia. And it's not to say that like, you know, like bagging out Sydney, but it felt like, I feel like at times when I go to events here that sometimes it just feels like very transactional, the way that like we move, although I have made like, you know, genuine friendships like yourself and other people who are now like in my circle, but I felt less pressure being there and like trying to capture the moment, but more, I think for me, it brought out that like just curiosity and like want and need to just like connect with people, meet new people, and also just be like present and just like you were saying, like in terms of people's energy, you're walking down the street and someone's like, hey, I really like those pants. Yeah. Like, but when they compliment you, it's not like a fake, oh, I really like your pants. It's like, no, dude, like, like keep doing like, you. Like, it's like, you know, and it I don't know, it just, there was something in the air. But I will say that because my mum lives in New York, and she was saying, like when I went, I think in 2022 or something like that, she was kind of like, the city's still recovering, but going this year, it feels as though, like it's back.
Yeah, it felt like it was the right time to go for sure. Yeah. But I think that in general, and again, like, you know, I didn't experience the pandemic side of things there, but I think in general, in Sydney, you know, I've been in this game for a decade. Like, crazy. I started uploading to Instagram when I was 21. Yeah. I'm about to turn 33. Wow. Like, it's over a decade, really, of a relationship with this app and creating a platform and having to consistently pivot and go with the market and go from stills only and square only to vertical to landscape, motion to back to carousels, back to 4-5 to now,
everything,
to all of this sort of, like, you just constantly having to adapt and present yourself to the world, but really to Sydney and potential clients and your peers in a way that's consistently relevant. And I think there's something about the PR side of the industry that we engage with that's just extremely jaded. I think when I got back, I just that electricity, that energy of New York, it was just like the candle was just blown out. And you come back here and everyone's like, oh, here we are again. You know, and which is so funny because we live in such a beautiful place. But I think maybe the Australian kind of laid back attitude and mentality lends itself to a nonchalance that feels almost jaded. Whereas New York,
everyone's quite jaded here.
Everyone's jaded, and for what reason? You know, like, because we have everything. But we're so jaded.
But I think sometimes maybe we are comparing ourselves to like the overseas market, and obviously we have different resources here, so sometimes people feel like what they're doing, I can't really speak on everyone, but I don't know.
I think that it's interesting because, you know, New York is a dirty city. It's fast paced. It's not for the weak, you know, like, and it's like, whilst you were, I predominantly dealt with really positive interactions, you are also like, is someone going to start yelling at me? And is this guy going to come up to me? Like, am I going to get a compliment or am I going to be, like what's going to go on, you know? Whereas we don't really have to think about that, thankfully, touch wood in Australia. But given that it is such a tough city, the excitement and the electricity of it is maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's because everyone is chasing sort of the lives that we have here, whereas we have it, so we're sort of bored. Actually, whereas they're like, I need that, you know. And I think the funny thing about being an Australian in New York is it's a very unique experience. People love it. And like, I found myself making my Australian accent even stronger.
Being like, oh yeah, I am from Australia.
I'm Australian. Yeah. Oh, can I get an oat latte? Thanks. And they're like, oh my God, where are you from? Are you Australian?
That's so cool.
No way. Like, accent. I want to go to Bondi so bad. Like, you know, so you're like, I mean, now that I'm back, I'm like totally trying to like put on an American accent now that I'm like back in Sydney. But when I was there, I was like, yeah, I'm Australian. You're like, I'm from Sydney. So they really respond to that. And I think what's cool about that is it's because they want our lifestyle so badly. So maybe it's just what happens when you're too comfortable.
I guess everyone always wants what they can't have. But I also think it's always important to like leave wherever you're from, you know, to then come back at a different capacity, whether it be visiting or like staying here, but you kind of appreciate like the place more. Like I feel like from like all my travels, whenever I come back to Australia, it still does feel like home to me. And even when it comes to, like, this is a really random pivot, but being in Australia, I'm like, we have such amazing produce, like, you know.
Oh, the food. Oh my God.
Like, it's actually like unmatched. And even when I'm in London, like the food, that's not great.
No, and still coffee, like you just can't.
You can't beat it.
It's funny because I'm like, oh, you know, Australians are such coffee snobs, but with good reason. No one else can do it like us. Yeah. And I wonder what that is. Why did we develop such an amazing coffee culture in Australia? Like,
I've no idea.
That barista culture here? The rest of the world just can't do it. And you find yourself looking for Australian cafes in New York.
In New York.
It's like, I need an Australian oat latte.
Literally.
But I think, I mean, I've thought a lot just culturally about Australia and whether it's possible to flourish as a creative in Australia. Because I think everyone that's achieved great success
always leaves.
Has had to at some point leave.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm at that point in my career now where I feel like I have to leave.
Yeah.
If I stay here.
When did you start having that like feeling that you had to leave?
When I ended my studio lease and I started.
Oh my God, that was last year, right?
No, it was.
Was that 2022?
It was about 2 years ago now, I think.
So 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was big. I feel like so much has happened to you in the literally since I met you. So like your life, like.
Yeah, I know. We met out the front of the Old Fitz. I'll never forget it. You walked up and I was like, oh my God, she's gorgeous. And you were wearing this long black silk dress with backless.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
It was that realization part dress that like was super popular back in 2022 and was kind of like, it had like a furry like, but it was like kind of like see-through. Anyways,
and they looked like a goddess.
Oh my God,
out the front of the old fits, and I was like, who is that?
I think I'd been in Sydney for like less than a week or something like that.
Yeah, you were with D, I think?
D, like one of my best friends.
Yeah, I don't know who, was I with Liv?
But I followed you and we like I knew of you for so long, and I remember when I went up to you, it felt like I knew you even though I didn't. I feel like the way that I interacted with you was like quite different from most people, but I also felt like it was like your energy, like it was just so inviting and so like welcoming, you know?
Well, that's nice to hear, because that's sort of how I hope interactions are always. But
they're not always like that.
No, I didn't realize that actually until recently.
Yeah.
That like not everyone's open.
No.
And I think also we talk about this a lot. I think every podcast or every Australian that creative will talk about tall poppy syndrome, and it exists.
There very much so is that. And that was why it was so refreshing when I met you, that I feel like you're always just very open with resources, but it also takes a level of like security within yourself to be that kind of person, to know that just because this person gets a particular job, it doesn't mean it's been taken away from you. It's more, the industry is like growing, and I feel like a lot of the times people aren't really.
For sure. I mean, I think it's easy to have like a scarcity mindset working in the industry here, because it is so small and there are only a few opportunities and a few people that get them, and a lot of the time the people that get them, it's because of the relationships they have. It's not necessarily about the work that they're doing or whatever. Again, massive generalization. But I think in a place like New York where it's just so big, I mean, of course, relationships still play into it, and people are going to work with people that are their friends.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot more openness to like, what are you doing? What are you working on? Show me something new. Or even just, I vibe you. I like you. Regardless of whether you're friends with this person and this person.
Oh, yeah.
I like you.
Yeah.
So I think that's always been my approach to everything in life, not just work. It's like, I meet someone, I like their energy, I want to hang out with them again, and I am in a position in my life where I can be a facilitator of things. Why would I not?
Where do you think that stemmed from, like in terms of like obviously like you being open, but I feel like it also comes to like, like a childhood or like a thing, like where do you think that stemmed from, or the way you were like raised, or so? I don't know.
My mum, for sure. My mum is one of the most amazing community-minded networking community builders I've ever come across. And so I watched my mum from a very young age make friends with the person who was scanning our groceries. You know, like my mum's always talking, she's curious, and she taught me that you never know somebody's story, and you never know how somebody will influence your life, and not in an opportunistic way necessarily. And I think that in Australia we have this real distaste for social climbing and opportunism, to the point where we don't actively try to expand our social circles. Like I think the traditional way of getting through life in Australia, especially if you were born and bred in Sydney, is that you're friends with the people from high school, you go to uni with them, and then you only ever stay in that group. But I mean, I'm eternally curious as a person, and what could be more exciting than meeting people from completely different circles to mine, and where could that lead my life? So I guess my mom taught me from an early age, leave an impression on people, leave a positive impression on people. And it makes such a difference just looking someone in the eye, having a conversation without having any context for who they are or anything like that.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we're losing that. Like I
big
sound
time.
so like, but I feel like obviously I love technology so much, but there's such a beauty in like just going back to basics and like human connection. And even the thing you're talking about of like someone you met at the grocery store, someone, you know what I mean, that being open enough to just like hear someone's story or like have a connection and look people in the eye, you know what I mean, like have that moment. I do feel that we're like kind of losing that.
For sure. It makes your life so much more exciting when you're open to interactions and new friendships. And like, I think because, like I said, you know, at the core of my being is an intense curiosity.
Yeah.
About people, about the world.
Essence of you.
About everything. And to my detriment sometimes. Because you know how there's that saying, curiosity killed the cat? Sometimes I get a little too curious and it gets me into tricky situations or into toxic situations. But by and large, it pushes me outside of just this one kind of spot, and it means that I meet and experience very new things all the time. But I think also, like, it's my superpower, and I know that, you know. So I think
superpower.
Like, people would sort of say to me, so I went from New York to Paris, and I flew from New York to Paris.
What was the difference for you?
Immediately, I felt like I was in the wrong place.
Paris?
Like, yeah, as soon as I landed in Paris.
Wait, I don't know if you told me this, or maybe I kind of heard.
It changed over time.
Okay.
But I went from 2 amazing weeks in New York where I would get up every morning. I was staying on my own. Everything completely on my own. I'd never really traveled on my own like this before. And
you were thriving.
Which is crazy.
When I saw you in that cos show, like, you were in your element. Like, you were like, I'm just here, here to watch the show. But you were more just, like, curious about the people.
Yes.
And I did Fashion Week last season. That was like my first kind of New York Fashion Week.
Yeah.
But you being there and kind of having that approach and not being so like, oh my God, we need to get the right shot.
Oh God, no, that's not me.
It like made me more relieved, and I felt more just like at ease. But anyway.
Oh, I couldn't do that. I was like, I've spent a lot of my money and time to come to New York. The last thing I'm going to do is stress over a photo. Like, and I understand that that's part of the job, being an influencer and all that sort of stuff. But like,
there's a balance, and I feel like you're constantly trying to figure out what that balance is and what that even looks like. Yeah,
and I'm like, my strength is just how I experience life in the sense of like socially. Like, I want to make 10 friends a day. Yeah, I want to talk to 10 different people every day. So the thought of like going all the way to New York just to go to shows, just to be in the perfect outfit with the perfect shot and the perfect grid and sit on my phone all day making sure that it was posted at the right time seems like the biggest waste of time and energy for me. But it definitely made me feel like, oh, I'm not doing Fashion Week the way you're supposed to do Fashion Week, because I wasn't. Like, I think I went to like 4 shows and I made like a reel out of each at some point, but it really wasn't anything that was in the, it wasn't my priority. My priority was like, who am I meeting? I mean, like, I got to meet Alex Kansani really randomly and really briefly after the Tory Burch show, and like that was so exciting for me. Did I get a photo of it? No, but I have the fucking memory of it, and I loved that happened. So I think like a lot of what I experienced in New York, I met so many of my idols just out of being open and being talkative and being Australian, and that was worth so much more value to me than like what you would be able to see on my Instagram or what I was posting. That's such a good point. I feel like recently I've really been thinking about like my online persona and, you know, me, Cynthia, and how, and kind of like my messaging, because obviously I feel like we interact and view socials in a different way because it is also part of our job. But I've been struggling in terms of like streamlining what actually like matters to me, and trying to like, you know, feel comfortable enough to like try these different things. Like I feel like I've had that moment of like showing my outfit fits and stuff, and then now I'm like, wait, but I actually like, don't get me wrong, I love fashion. I love dressing up, but that's not 100% what really like, you know, drives me in life, and how, and trying to like figure that out, and how I, and if it's even possible to like present the real you, or present something that feels authentic on an online platform. I've always said this, it's not. It's a fallacy. Like, it's the very act of presenting yourself, like self-representation, means that by very nature of that, it's inauthentic. Yeah. Because you're presenting it. Like, you're cognizant of it. You're consciously creating content to project a version of yourself that you think aligns with your audience.
Yeah.
There's nothing authentic about that. It's inherently inauthentic.
Yeah.
So I think I sort of had to come to terms with that and go like, a lot of the feedback I've been getting lately, because I'm also in a similar position where I'm like, you know, how do I stay relevant? It's been a decade. Is it time to check out? Is it over? Have I milked this shit as far as I can? And I think I started my career, I started on socials when I was like 23 or whatever. My brother was doing his thing.
Yeah, tell us the story.
Well, it was like, you know.
What were you doing before that? Obviously, like you would have been in high school.
Yeah.
Were you born here?
Yeah, I was born in Sydney, but
Yeah.
then as soon as like a few weeks old, we moved to Bali. Like we moved back. So my mum flew here just to have me on Australian soil.
Oh my
Thank
God.
God. And then as soon as I was a few weeks or months old or whatever, went back to Bali and spent all that whole time until I was 8 years old in Bali.
Crazy.
So I had my childhood there.
Yeah.
And then
What was that like?
It was incredible. I'm so
What are
lucky.
your
I
memories?
will raise my children in Bali for sure.
Okay, why is that? I've actually never been to Bali.
Because Bali is a Hindu island. What's unique about it is that like the religion in Bali is so tied in with the lifestyle and the culture that it's impossible to actually separate it. So, and at the core of Balinese Hinduism is gratitude. And every single day offerings are made multiple times a day to thank the gods. It's called the island of the gods. So it's this like you're raised with practicing gratitude daily, you know, and also understanding that you're a visitor on the land, you know, and like like so many things can happen in Bali. It's very quick, you know, and you grow up really quickly as well because you see also the polarization of wealth.
Yeah.
It's very obvious and very much in front of you all the time. I think in Australia, to some degree, you can ignore the effects of capitalism, and you can kind of only, for example, exist in a bubble that is middle class or whatever and never really see outside of that unless you actively seek it out.
Yeah.
In Bali, it's in front of you.
Yeah.
What else is in front of you is, for example, like, you know, you see motorbike accidents and you see what happens when it's lawless kind of thing in a way. So it's like when you're driving in Bali, you've got to be very autonomous and you've got to think quickly and you've got to be, you're in control of yourself and how you react to those situations. And I think Australia, in a lot of ways, we're reliant on the system to tell us when do I go, when do I stop, how fast should I be going. You know, we've got speed limits, we've got you know, lights telling you when to do things, we've got certain times of the year, so it's very regimented in Australia, whereas in Bali it's very autonomous. It's like you're in charge of you, and if you fall over or this happens, you know, a lot of the time you're like, oh, what can I learn from that? So I guess it taught me a lot of those things. It taught me gratitude. It taught me that, like, you know, you really do have to be alert about the way you're participating. But it also just gave me a lot of access to nature, beauty, community, like so much of the Balinese way. And again, you know, my dad's Balinese, my mum's Greek. Those two cultures are all about family and about community. And so I was raised, you know, with a big extended family.
Yeah.
Especially even in Sydney, like I lived with Yaya and Papu, so my Greek grandparents. They were very much integrated into our lives. And I remember there was a point when I was 21 where I really resisted that, right? Because the Australian way is like, get out. You know, why are you still at home? Why do you talk to your parents? Why do you have your grandparents around? Like, you're 21.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that recently.
Anyone, I think that comes from an ethnic family or something.
Yeah, you always resist.
You're like, oh, like, leave me alone.
Yeah, you're like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing.
It's so cringe. Why is my family around?
Totally.
So, and then now as I'm older, I'm so grateful for that, knowing that there's a whole family in Bali and they constantly have you in mind and they're like doing prayers and rituals and for you, and you feel really like, I'm part of something.
And although they may be like far in distance, but like spiritually, it's like that connection. And I feel like that really helps the way that you move in life.
Yeah, so I guess like Balinese ritual and Balinese just there's such an austere, so there's so much respect for spirit and for gods and for the forces that we can't see. That give us that abundance.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, you know, and karma as a concept or as an idea or whatever, it's just like, you know, the karmic cycles and whatever you put out comes back to you.
Yeah.
So those are the things I took away from Bali. I'm very grateful for, as well as just growing up like exposed to multiple different languages, cultures, ways of life. Everyone I went to school with, almost all of them were multilingual, bilingual. And I guess in a way, like, it's that the transience of no one really belongs to Bali per se. Obviously, the Balinese people have that rooted history, but it's this, even they don't have an entitlement to land, if that makes sense. They're like, oh, we're borrowing this land and these resources for the time that we're here until the next life. Yeah. So I think all of those things are really positive. And then when we moved to Sydney, it was like pretty jarring because again, I think the first thing I noticed was the regimentation of everything. Everything's this is the way, you have to do it this way, stick this way, don't go out of the lines. And then did high school, an all-girls Catholic school, which was tough.
Oh my God.
Because, I mean, I was one of a handful of, like, ethnic girls, I suppose. And because I wasn't, like, the beauty standard, I found that I was really grasping for an identity that I could make mine. And it felt like the only way to do that was academia. Yeah. So I was like, I'm not good at sport. Yeah. And I'm not the girl that the boys want. Yeah. So what will I do? I'll become the studious one that, you know, and I really, you know, wanted to win all the awards. Yeah. But it became almost maniacal where I was like, I have to be the best. Yeah. I have to be number one because if I'm not, I'm invisible. And so I get angry, you know.
And it's like that thing of, I don't know what the word is, but this is super random, but I'm Christian, and whenever I go to church, I always get emotional whenever they say, God loves you. Yeah. Like, he just loves you. Like, it doesn't matter, like, you know, what you're achieving. And I can relate to, I kind of was, like, similar in school. I wasn't, like, super academic, but I did, like, drama, debate. I was like school captain, but I was really like grasping onto these like accolades to feel worthy of like love or feeling like if I did these things then people would see me. You know, and I feel like it's only like, you know, in my adult life that I've clocked that and even sometimes when I'm talking to my therapist that I'll be like, I'll talk about like, you know, what being worthy and like earning, and she's like, but you don't have to earn anything. Like, by just being you is enough. Which I'm still have not really come to terms with that. I'm still like, no, I have to be the best. I still have to.
I have to be the best.
Yeah.
Like I have to win the award.
And
I guess the way that has manifested into our public platforms and, you know, needing to measure that our posts are performing, that our followers are maintaining or increasing, that like we continued that into our adult lives where we found ways to actually measure how much people like us or respond to us. So I think that's something I've also been really talking to my therapist about as well, and it's a problem that me and my brother both really struggled with, which is like, who am I outside of accolades, my public persona and my work? Like, does anybody even care about me like outside of that? And I think that's why New York was important in a way, because like, again, you know, when you take yourself outside of your context and nobody has context for you, what I realized is that regardless of everything, people still responded to me. People still liked me. People still wanted to hang out with me. And that I had to be like, oh, you know what? Outside of everything else, I have a core essence that is worthy and valuable. And I don't need to show up with, hey, here's my resume. Here's what I've done. Also, here's my Instagram. But, you know, it's still easy to fall into that. And it's still easy to trick yourself into thinking, because like I feel like at the moment my socials are not performing in a way that I want them to, or I don't feel like I'm, you know.
The algorithm does kill creativity.
For sure it does, in multiple different ways.
Yeah.
Even on like streaming platforms and stuff, like so much of it is directed by the algorithm. But there's this book that my friend Priscilla told me to read, which is called Playing to the Galleries by Grayson Perry, who's an artist. And there's this line in it where Grayson says, democracy has no taste. And I think if you kind of think about that in terms of the algorithm, which kind of gathers data based on what's popular, that's in a sort of very general way, this is what's popular. But I don't know that that's necessarily a metric with which we should be applying to art, because so much of art and creativity, it's hard to, it's so much of it's just an essence.
It's an essence.
I just responded to that. I don't know why, but I did.
It's like I was like randomly watching this TikTok video of Andrew Garfield, and he was like reading this letter from this like,
is that with the chicken shop date?
No, not the chicken shop one. He was just...
Oh, he was crying.
Yeah. He was reading this letter about this guy talking about his wife who had cancer. Yeah. And it just, like, struck a chord, and the interviewer was really good, and she just was like, if you don't mind me asking, like, why do you think, like, what is that hitting? And... it just, like, I don't know, I was, like, watching that interview, and I was like, wow, like, it's just so beautiful, because it's just the human essence, you know? It's these layers that we have within us that we can't fully explain, but we're experiencing it, and it's like you know, like a smell that takes you back to, like, a lover, or, you know, you being in your grandma's presence or something like that, or, like, a really horrible experience. It's, like... It's spiritual, and it's hard to then be able to see it in such like a, you know, like mathematic way. Yeah. Even though maths in itself is also like beautiful, but it's like, how do you even like box that? I don't even know if that makes sense.
No, you definitely do. There's a book called Blink, and it's by the same author as The Tipping Point. What's his name? It's escaped me. But anyway, it's a really great book that's about intuition and the intersection between intuition and science. So amazing examples. And one of them was about this Greek like bust. Archaeologists had uncovered this Greek bust. And
what's a bust?
Like the head of a, you know, when you see like the sculpture, but it's like the head of a person.
Okay.
There's a particular word for it. It's escaped me now. Yeah. Essentially, it was like a Greek stone, whatever. And they were trying to carbon date it. So carbon dating is obviously like a scientific method for dating something and being able to decide if it's genuine or a replica or whatever. And it was, I think they came to the conclusion that it was genuine based on the carbon dating. But there was one particular archaeologist that had a feeling. And the feeling was that it was off. There was something off about this thing that they'd uncovered, and he or she didn't quite believe that this was accurate to that time. Yeah. And then, but science was telling everybody that it is. Yeah. But the scientist was like, no, there's something strange about the hands or something like that. Just intuition, but couldn't back it up. Yeah. Years later, they actually did discover that there was like an anomaly in the carbon dating, and actually it was not from that era. Oh, wow. So this book, Blink, is all about these instances throughout time where intuition and something we cannot explain has actually been the truth. Play is at the core of, I think, everything I do. And the moment I lose that, I think, is the moment I stop making things.
How do you feel that play, or how do you use play now in like your present day, and kind of going through this like shift of like figuring out what's next for you?
Well, I think that's why I'm feeling so stuck, actually, because when I had the studio, I sort of had an abundance of space and resources and community and people. You know, every day at that studio, someone was there. And it would be like, Dan, let's try this. Shelley, let's try this. Oh, if we go to reverse garbage, what do they have there today? I remember one time we went to reverse garbage and there was just reams of fake turf. And we're like, cool, let's just take that over and see what we can do with it. So that was probably one of the most creative periods of my life, because I also had people to play with. Yeah. So now that I've kind of streamlined everything and it's become a lot more about Yasmin and just me on my own. Yeah. I'm actually trying to rediscover that. Like, how do I play again?
Yeah. Yeah. I like you talking about all those like different projects that you've done in the past, I feel like recently I've felt that like within me, that I like, obviously like coming from like modeling and then kind of like socials, that a lot of the times it's very like individual. Obviously with modeling you've got like a whole team, but it's still like I'm at the forefront. And I have been thinking about that, of like just wanting to try things, not to be published, but to just like try it and just see it. But then I feel like in a way I felt a bit, I guess I'm in my own way of, I guess maybe just feeling scared of like, I guess approaching my friends or people with this thing and just being like, hey, I want to try this. Like, I don't know if it's going to be like a thing, but that like playful nature, I'm also struggling to like get into that, you know? And also I think before I started doing this full time, that a lot of my time was spent on playing with friends and just doing things that I wouldn't really like earn money from. But then there's like this shift when this becomes like your full-time job, and then you are like kind of like thinking of like, okay, how can I like capitalize on this, which feels bad to say, but I feel like I'm always like thinking about that in the back of my mind, compared to giving yourself a place to just do stuff that you're not going to earn money from.
Yeah, and it takes the edge off, because when you play, it should also be with the expectation that you might not create anything that's worth publishing. Whereas, like you said, you know, I don't think we have necessarily the luxury to do that, because once you are established, like, you can't just put something out that doesn't perform. Or even if you do, like, it hurts you. You're like, oh, I tried something new and people didn't like it. Shit, I never want to do that again. And it kind of discourages you, and then you continue to just produce the same type of content that you know. Same like the algorithm, you know it's going to get response. But yeah, I think you have to be able to play without the expectation that it will be, you know, your magnum opus, because it won't be. You got to play a lot before you get there. It's part of the process. But I mean, obviously also we don't really have the luxury with like money and time and rent, and you know, it's hard to ask your friends nowadays, hey, do you want to do a free shoot? And it's like, how am I going to pay my rent?
Like I may pretend like it may not go anywhere, but we're just gonna like, you know, like,
let's go burn a roll of film.
Let's just like
do it.
Let's just you know, like it's oh my god, 100%. So
it's hard because we're adults, and we want to play, but we have the responsibility of adults. We're not kids anymore.
Do you feel like an adult?
Yeah, I feel like a very playful adult. Like, I think a lot of people tell me that I have, like, you know, my inner child really shines a lot. Like, she's there with me. And I feel like she's there with me all the time. I feel like I talk to my little version of me. And I have such vivid memories of being a child, actually.
Yeah, really.
It's actually crazy. People are like, how the fuck do you remember?
A lot of people, like, don't remember their childhood.
Oh, I can transport myself back and relive through her eyes. Like, one of my most vivid memories is like I would spend a lot of time at my best friend Bella Corsa's house in Bali. It's called Villa Bella. And I was recently there with Yasmin, and I got to share that with her, which was so special because this house means so much to me. And Bella's mum, Jane, always had art books around everything, always watching movies and looking at pictures. And I was like 5 or 6, and there was this book, David LaChapelle, Heaven to Hell. It was a photo book, and I can literally place myself back there on that table, flicking through the book, going, this is what I want to do. I want to make photos. I want to play characters. I want to dress people up and use lights and make sets. I was 5, maybe 6, 7 years old, and but I can fully go back to that child and be her.
Your child self always knows.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't listen to her though, which is annoying. She'll be like, I don't feel good. And I'll be like,
it's fine. We'll just push through. Maybe we're just like,
it's fine, you know. But I think that's also part of my inner child, is really wanting to be loved and really wanting to be liked, even. Just like, please like me, you know. And so it's another thing that I have to clock as an adult. Like, I find it really hard to accept that not everybody likes me.
Yeah.
Like, really?
In what way?
It upsets me because I feel like it's unfair for people to make judgments without properly knowing me.
Yeah.
But then I have to kind of go, well, that's just what humans do.
Yeah.
They just form opinions about people.
Yeah.
And, you know, that as I saying, like, someone else's opinion is none of my business.
Yeah.
But it is my business.
Yeah.
Well, I make it my business.
Yeah.
But that is a very limiting way to live your life.
Yeah.
Because then a lot of your self-worth or your sense of self is bound up in other people's opinions of you, which you're not in control of, ever. So, anyway, that's some inner child shit.
No, I can totally relate to that. I think my inner child is just wanting to be seen.
Yeah.
I feel like... But then, in recent times, I think I've realized that, you know, I even struggle to see myself. So then how do I expect others to see me?
Yeah.
And what that even looks like. That I feel like growing up a lot of the times I just kind of wanted to feel normal. Whereas now I can acknowledge that, like, no one really feels normal, or no one really feels like they're doing, like, the right thing or the thing that's, like, socially accepted. But we were, like, talking about this before, that I feel like, in a sense, that we're both sensitive, and I only say that because I feel like I know you, and how to be able to move in the world with that sensitivity and not, like, internalize that and feel like I think I put people on a pedestal who come across as, like, the cool girl, like, doesn't give a fuck, is just, like, you know, like, able to cut someone off like that. And I definitely, as I've grown up, can create, like, better boundaries and stuff, but, like, I am so sensitive, like, but I also think that as a person, one of my gifts is I'm, like, quite intuitive. And so a lot of the times I'm always just, like, picking up on energy without, you know, choosing to, that there's always, like, these things that are just coming at me and that I can, like, feel, or, like, the unspoken. And I think I'm still coming to terms with, like, that sensitivity and how it plays a role in my life without judging myself. And I feel like I judge myself a lot. Like, I kind of, like, cringe at myself a lot, and I go, oh.
Yeah. It's my childhood friend Bella Corsa. She does, like, a lot of breath work and healing, and she's just started using TikTok. And actually, she put up a TikTok the other day that said, vulnerability is your greatest strength. And I think when you reframe it, look at it that way, and you go, actually, me showing up to the world being my vulnerable self is actually takes a lot of strength. It takes a lot more strength to be vulnerable and I guess risk rejection than to be nonchalant.
Something that I really want to move more into as of now, not just 2025, it's just, like, not playing small.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the times when we let embarrassment and these, like, you know, social cues and norms, you know, rule us, it's like we play small to be, like, digestible. And I feel like a lot of the times I try to be digestible.
Oh my God, yeah.
To people.
Yeah.
Which unintentionally, but it's also, like, the line of work that we're in that you...
And just the experience of being a woman a lot of the time too, where you're like, oh, I just want to, be palatable, digestible. I just want to be a cute little hors d'oeuvre that you can just pick up and eat. Like, you know...
You can just pick up.
Yeah, just, you know, no need for a serviette.
Like,
nothing, just...
Oh, she's... Yeah.
Like, not like a messy thing with sauce everywhere that you have to go wash your hands after cutlery. Wow, what a great analogy. I just want to be a cute little hors d'oeuvre. Yeah. But you realize that, to extend on this actual analogy, the cute little hors d'oeuvre doesn't fill you up. The messy taco that's dripping everywhere, that's got, like, pineapple and pulled pork and everything, and it's fucking meaty. You remember that taco. And it fills you up. Yeah. So, and that taco is being authentic to itself being a taco.
I know.
It's not a generic little fucking hors d'oeuvre you just pluck off the plate. Anyways, I think it's hard as a woman to, because you have to be so brave. And it's this other thing that I'm really coming to terms with now, that, like, a lot of people assume I'm strong. because I guess I present as someone who's confident, who knows who I am, who has built, you know, businesses and careers and all that sort of shit. But I get really tired of people being like...
Of playing that role.
Yeah, like, oh, you wouldn't be affected because you're strong. It's like, yeah, I'm strong and sensitive at the same time.
The two can coexist.
And also, why do you think that you can treat me like that because I'm strong?
Yeah, like, you can take it. Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you describe 2024 for you? Because I feel like we've had a lot of, like, personal conversations about 2024.
2024 has been one of the more tumultuous years of my adult life, I will say.
Matter of fact.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll get straight into it. I mean, so it's funny to me that 2020, well, not funny, but it's curious to me that 2024 was one of the harder years, given that we went through 2 years of lockdown and I went through, you know, my brother being sick and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think what made 2024 so difficult is that the problems were all about me and identity rather than external problems.
Yeah, like you had to look inward.
Yeah, so I think, you know, the pandemic and everything, it was, I mean, obviously there were internal issues to that, but a lot of it was this external problem. Oh, we are dealing with something globally that is outside of just, you know, identity.
Bigger than us.
Whereas 2024 was identity.
Yeah.
Everything about it was, Yasmin, who are you?
Yeah.
Who are you in relationships? Who are you in friendships? Who are you to your family? Who are you as an artist? Who are you as an influencer? Who are you as a friend? Like, who are you? And I still don't fucking know. So I came into the year being really uncertain. I ended a 3.5 year relationship, which was fucking huge. And it was this thing as well of being honest and truthful with myself about something that wasn't working, but having the bravery to walk away from it when every part of my being is about fixing things. And also kind of coming to terms with the fact that sometimes you can't fix things. Sometimes things aren't supposed to continue on. And I think also being, you know, someone who likes to control or have control over my life, that really frustrated me because I was like, I'm not in control of this. What the hell? I have to surrender. And so that's what brought me back to Bali, where I had, it was in March, and I went with Olivia and Luca.
And this was just after Fashion Week.
After Fashion Week,
yeah. When I saw you,
I think that Fashion Week also was a really tough one for me in that I...
Yeah, speak on that.
You know, I just signed with an agency.
Yeah.
I was navigating that after having
that space.
Self-represented.
Yeah, that would have been a whole thing.
It was a whole thing. It was the first time sort of relinquishing control. I still wanted to be really across it. I was kind of having to trust that someone else could do the job I was doing.
Yeah.
Is it going to help or hinder? You know, I was forwarding my clients and relationships on and trusting that someone else could do that. But at the same time, you know, part of my motivation in signing was knowing that the work was drying up and going, I need to now look for someone to push me further because I've actually exhausted all of my resources.
Yeah.
And that was a bit scary because it was like, maybe this is the end of the road for me. And the only way forward is to get someone else to rebrand me. You know, like so many of the conversations this year about rebrand. Like sitting in front of a fucking PowerPoint.
Rebrand.
And looking at yourself on a screen. And going, what works, what doesn't. What do people like? What do people not like?
And also, it's just not normal for a human being to look at themselves so much to that extent and to constantly be dissecting and, you know, trying to like refurbish, you know?
Completely. And it's not even just the physicality of it because I don't really have a problem with looking at my own face. But it's more like, what is this communicating to other people?
Yeah.
What is what I'm wearing or how the caption or how I put like even to the intricacy of like, am I doing a carousel in 4:5?
Yeah.
Or am I doing it in square?
Yeah.
Am I putting a random photo in between a photo of me?
What is that saying?
Am I doing it in a candid way or am I doing it in a posed way? And what does that say about me?
Yeah.
Do I seem like a cool girl that doesn't care? Or do I seem like a fashion girl? Like, it's fucking exhausting.
And also, I feel like, say, like yourself, you have so many different interests and so many things that you're like really good at. And it's like, how do you like streamline that or kind of create a space to be able to like, you know, discover and play and
that's what, like, I mean, in the last couple of weeks it's been really bad, and so I just kind of, it got to the point when I got back from New York and Paris, I actually for the first time in a long time had this kind of like paralysis of wanting to be, I like to be perceived, so I know that I'm in a weird place when I don't want anyone to see me and I don't want anyone to know what I'm doing. And I really hermited, and I felt a lot of embarrassment, a lot of shame, and I literally didn't post for a month. Yeah. And I mean, this is it sounds like such a silly conversation, but I didn't post for a month. But in
this context, I think
in a work context, it was like, you don't post, you don't work. Yeah. You know, and a month is a long time. And so then I sat down with a friend, and my friend was just kind of like, well, why don't you start scheduling posts then? Because I physically, like, opening the app would just, I'd be like, oh, this particular point in my life has been this really massive identity crisis. And I think it happens to anyone that's been in any career for a certain amount of time. It's not unusual for a graphic designer or a musician or literally anyone to sort of do a rebrand because it's, you know, you've got to kind of keep up with things. But yeah, so I got back from being away. I didn't post for a month, partly because I felt when I was away, there was no pressure in the sense that I wasn't thinking about people in Sydney. I was just thinking about, I'm on the streets of New York, woo, you know, like I really wasn't thinking, what does so-and-so in Sydney think about this? And then I got back here and it felt so like, what have you been doing? Yeah. So how was Fashion Week? And I had like, even some people kind of critique me and go like, oh, you didn't really post anything about Fashion Week. And I'm like, no, like especially in Paris, I felt like I really dropped the ball because everyone around me that was an influencer was going hard.
But weren't you like shooting in Paris? Like shooting
you know, I picked up a job for Nike. I did an editorial with Hayley. Yeah, like, but I wasn't like, you know, running to the Reese's and making sure that I was wearing the right outfit and doing 10,000 shows a day. And it was sort of like, that's how you do the Fashion Week circuit. You know, you got to have, you know, 10 kilos over in luggage, bringing like pre-planned looks. It's
so stressful.
I had like maybe 10 things that I was just wearing over and over again. Yeah. And I was like trying to go to PR and get shit, but I was like, man, I just want to enjoy my time here. Yeah. So what I ended up doing in Paris majority of the time was line biking with Hayley. And I had like the best time ever. Yeah. But I came back and people were kind of like, so you like, didn't what really were you do Fashion Week. You didn't really do it. Yeah. You only posted like one show and it was Ganny. Oh my God. And it's like, and all I did for that was like attend the show. Not all I did, but you know, I attended the show. But I didn't, I don't know, I just kind of went, okay, here's a look. I'm sitting here. Here's some of the runway. I don't know. So, you know, I came back and it was like, you didn't do Fashion Week properly. And then I sort of like, okay, well, I'm not a Fashion Week girl. I'm not a photographer. I'm not a director. I'm not an influencer. What the fuck am I? So I just, and also in my personal life, I was feeling like, I was sort of like doing a lot for one person to see me. Like, you know, when you're in that headspace, when you're sort of Gatsbying and you're like, I only care about one person's opinion, and it was like, this is stupid. So it took a month of, you know, not intentionally, but it ended up being a month where I just didn't post anything. And then I had a chat with a bunch of friends and my new agency, and it was like, well, you know, you got to feed it. You got to feed the beast. If you want work, you got to look like you're around and you're doing work. So I kind of slingshot into the opposite direction and just scheduled stuff. Because the friend I was talking to was like, listen, if you're feeling paralysis of posting, then just schedule it. So now I'm sitting here talking to you and something's gone live. And I don't fucking think about it. I don't look at the like. I mean, I do look at the likes, but I'm sort of trialing this new thing where it's just consistent. Yeah,
you can be a little bit more distance, like create the thing, put it out, and 100%. Well,
I think because I do a lot of things, I was looking at, you know, photographers and directors that I admire. And they use Instagram simply as a portfolio. Totally. They're not feeding the algorithm. They probably post once every 3 months. And it's like one polished piece that they spend a lot of time on. Yeah. And it's perfectly well done. Totally. And their feed is perfectly curated. And their grid is impeccable. Yeah. So I was trying to do that. But I work in the influencer space, which is the opposite. It's post regular, consistent. Regular, consistent. You can't be going 1 month I didn't post, then I did, then I didn't. So now I'm kind of reverting back to that, but it's hard because I have to relinquish my, you know, priority for quality. You can't post quality if it's every week, even. Yeah, like, I mean, I'm probably doing like 2 or 3 times a week at the moment it's scheduled, which is so far from how I've ever interacted before. And people start talking, you know, like the other day I had someone write to me, are you having an identity crisis, photographer versus influencer? And I screenshot that and I put it on my story because I was like, there's probably a bunch of people that are thinking this, because suddenly I'm weaving my photos back in and it's like, wait, I thought you were an influencer.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to tackle that now, where it's like, how do you do both? You know, sort of like what you were saying, like, I'm more than just someone who stands in front of the camera, but my audience doesn't want to see that.
Yeah.
So I've been throwing random ass shit out, you know, from me being funny to me, a black and white photo that I took 3 years ago, to a fashion film I made. And I'm like, I'm doing the exact opposite of what they tell you to do, which is stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Have a strong brand.
Something I said this to a friend where I feel like, so recently I went to Vietnam with Dee.
Yeah.
Which is like so beautiful.
Yeah, it looked really fun.
It was amazing. And something that I took out of that trip was community, and also people just like doing things from where they're at, like not needing to have like all the resources or be polished. That I felt like there when we were going to like, you know, certain things, like we also had 2 other friends who lived there, so the experience was a lot more like personal, that people just felt comfortable to be like, oh, come to my house, I have like a mini bar thing at my house, that it wasn't polished. Whereas I think sometimes in Sydney that everyone's so stuck on like the image and like the end result that it sometimes feels really like when you're going through this moment of just wanting to explore and try new things, of like being actually in the like, you know, mechanical like way or aspect, that people, I feel like people don't really like that.
No, they don't like it.
They want more
they really don't like
the
it.
polished version. They're like, oh my god, look at this magazine spread that I did. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Or like, oh my god, look at this, you know, shoot that I, you know, like the polish, not the like, hey, I want to see the, like what my audience wants to see.
Totally.
My audience is changing, so therefore I need to like try different things. And I even get paralyzed by that, and there's like certain things that I want to try that I don't try because I go, oh, I don't know if people are going to think like that's all, but you know what I mean? It's just me getting in my head. Oh,
I know, I've completely thrown myself in the deep end, and I'm like, similar to what I was saying about not being afraid of embarrassment or doing it wrong.
Embarrassment.
I'm like out here just posting, and I'm copying people saying, are you having a mental breakdown, or who do you think you are, or what are you doing, or this is not how you do it, you know, and looking around at people who are similar to me and being like, oh shit, their feed's so curated, they only post this, they only post fashion.
But I don't know if there's anyone in the space that is like similar to you. I feel like you're very much so your own thing. Like when I see like your photography work, I'm like, oh my god, amazing. Like when I see, you know, your film work, I'm like, insane. And then you as a person is so like fucking beautiful. Your style is amazing. That it's like you are your own thing. And I kind of, not to project, but as an offering, I feel like it's kind of hard for you because there's no one like you in the space who really crosses over from being behind the scene and also in front. Like I feel like the only person I can think of that is like overseas is that what's her name?
Nadia Lee Cohen, my idol. Like the way that her name, she's everything to me.
Has become such a like this. There aren't really a lot of people in the industry. Like that, and it's very hard
because you're discouraged from doing that.
Really
discouraged.
Whereas she's, you know, cultivated this whole space, and people are like opening up people's ideas of like what you can and can't do.
100%. And I think like she's come up a lot in conversation. I've obviously talked about her a lot with my agents and stuff, but I think maybe what I've come to terms with is that although she does it all, she has a very clear aesthetic.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm struggling. My aesthetic is all over the place.
So you're trying to find that, which is so fine. It's the process, you know?
Yeah.
And people struggle with seeing
people don't like seeing the process. They only like seeing the end product.
And I'm sure that like she didn't just like come into the world, just being like, this is, I'm sure that there's like so many stuff that she like tried beforehand.
Yeah.
But we only know
you
her
scroll
now
all the way back. Yeah.
as-
I mean, but there's so many times where I wish I could archive my whole Instagram and only have, you know, the perfect 3 posts. But the actual physical act of doing that would take me days because I've been posting since I was 23. So it's like thousands of posts, and I'm like, I actually hate that my whole trajectory as a creative is documented for the public. And it's something I think about all the time. It's like, when you think back to, so for example, a filmmaker like Sofia Coppola, like one of her first short films was called Lick the Star.
Okay.
And it's a black and white film, and it was sort of the prototype for what would become Virgin Suicides. But like, not many people know of it, and not many people have seen it. But nowadays, you see everything a person ever did because we've posted it online. So I wonder if we would have, obviously we have the same reverence for those types of artists and filmmakers, but it's like they've all made shit. I'm not saying Lick the Star's shit, but like, every great creative has made something shit or multiple shit things. It's just that they're not necessarily accessible by the public.
Yeah.
Whereas we are just out here going, let's give this a go. I'm not going to resonate with this in 6 months to fucking 3 years time. Of course I'm not going to resonate with this person. I cringe at myself last week, let alone 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's all out there.
Yeah.
You can't take it back.
I'm unsure how I feel about that when it comes to, like, I love going into people's pages and it's like really curated and it's just what resonates with them now. But then I also love, for me, seeing the journey. Like, someone that I like, Emily Ratajkowski. I'm still so sad that I did not see her cause. Like,
well, you were getting paparazzi.
But I was like, I was like, that is. Anyways,
I was genuinely saying, they're like, oh, that's Emrata.
Wasn't that just so crazy that like when you're like, say, New York, Paris, like, everyone's just so accessible.
Just there.
Obviously, I'm not gonna go out to talk to her, but like, they're just there.
Oh my god! Like, when Chloe Sevigny walked in, I was like, I can't believe Chloe Sevigny's in the same room.
Insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
Insane. But I know that she gets like a lot of shit about a lot of different things, and she's very her own thing. But when I go to her Instagram, I love that I can go back to like when she was like a teenager or just with like her best friends who are now still in her life, but like back then when they were just like awkward people, and she still has photos of her ex that like did her dirty. Like she, like I
didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, to me there's power in that, but then I don't quite know how to like stand in that power, whether or not if that's something that I resonate with, just like, you know, doing it with my full chest, or I'm
completely.
like in between being like, wait, everyone has like 90 photos, like maybe.
Oh my god, totally. I mean, I think it's such a Sydney thing as well to deny your past and only sit where you are. Like, there's so many people I know in Sydney that I've known for a decade that I almost feel like they're embarrassed that I remember them when they were just starting out, or maybe when we were at the same level, or maybe when we like assisted, you know, and it's like they'll almost kind of avoid me because I'm a reminder of who they were. And I'm like, sit in that. Like, we were all losers at one point. We were all little assistants hustling and making shit at one point. And I guess maybe because I've never gotten to the point of being like, I'm the best, that I'm okay with, like, I don't think I'm the best, you know? I don't know if I'll ever be the best.
But I don't really know what that does to a person when they feel like they're the best. I feel like there should always be some kind of room that it's like,
Yeah, but it's like it's not allowing you access to any of their weaknesses. It's like, oh, you know, I'll archive that shoot because it wasn't that great. Or it's not, you know, the moment now.
I get in my head about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people who I've seen like fully just archive everything. And start again.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of that.
Which you can, like a rebrand, which is also cool.
Yeah, and hard to do.
Yeah.
I'd love to do a rebrand, but I don't even know where to start. Like, it's probably what I need is a rebrand. But then at the same time, you know, I have to remember as well, like, part of the reason why I even have a following is from being a 23-year-old that was, you know, uploading to YouTube, and that as much as that version of me, it doesn't resonate or maybe I cringe at, that's why people came to see me at first. And some of those followers I still have been watching me since I was 23. And that's what they like. They watched me go through the studio period. They watched me go through the your mum to your dad period. They're now watching me go into my 30s. Like you said, it's kind of like the Emrata sort of... I've been here for a while and I'm a real person. And even if you're starting out, like, you can reference back to me when I was... But a lot of people won't show you that.
100%. Also, side note, I remember, like, I didn't really know you when you had your 30th, but I remember hearing about it and, like, seeing it all over socials and everyone was, like, dressed up. And I was like... Who is this? Like, you literally had, like, everyone at your party. It was, like...
Was it the Studio 54 one?
Or
the
no,
Gucci?
I think it was the mermaid, or, like, people were, like, dressed in, like...
Oh, the alien one. The out of this world one.
Yeah, I think that was it. And I don't know if I'd moved to Sydney yet or had just moved. I can't quite remember. But it was just, like, everywhere on my feed. And I was, like... Oh my god, slay.
It was a good time. I remember when I got the studio, I was like, one thing I really want to do now that I have a space is that end of year, it's my birthday, it's Christmas, like I want to celebrate everyone I work with. So I always want to put on a big party, and I obviously love a theme, and everyone that I work with is fabulous and into fashion. So it started with a Studio 54 theme because of course you got to do a Studio 54 party at some point. That was probably the best one in terms of like the production of it. And then it was the Gucci party because I was like obsessed with Gucci, and then it was the out of this world alien one, and then I just did like one last year or the year before because I love celebrating people, and I love that, like I love a theme, and
me
I love
too. I love a birthday, and I know that a lot of people don't like birthdays and like for the attention, but for me it's not about attention. I think it's more I love the community. Like,
yeah, it's an excuse to get everyone together.
Yeah, like even when I was in New York, I had a birthday party, but you just missed it. But it was like all the group of girls like in my life or people that it brought together that now I've got like friends who have like met from that birthday and are still in touch. Or people who were living in New York and didn't know each other. And
it's so cool.
And we just had like a really beautiful time, and I think that yes, it was about me, but it was like a very small aspect. Yeah. But it was more just like the crossover of like, I'm friends with you guys, and there's a, you know, we're kind of all quite like-minded, but I feel like this person and that person.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
it's like your curation of like people and vibes.
But speaking of birthdays, when I came, Yaz had all these magazines from her childhood of her like a modeling.
I've been doing a Marie Kondo, like cleaning up my place and like finding old things, and I was like, when did I become someone who wanted to be seen by other people and wanted to be photographed and published? And then I'm like, oh, it started really early. It started in Barbie magazine. What year is this? It would have been like 1994, 95 or something. And my mum had submitted like photos of me and my brother in Bali because I was a mad Barbie fan. Like I loved my Barbie collection.
Oh my god.
And so it like started there.
What the hell? Wait, can I show it closer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I'm like
this whole page. Look at I'm obsessed with you in the green dress.
I know.
Like, this dress is like everything. And your little
so
is your brother younger than you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And him like looking at you there, like that's.
Oh, it was very cute. He was my best friend growing up. I mean, he still is, but like it was so. I loved having a buddy to play with.
Was it just you two?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this one, obviously, my mum must have submitted as well, and it's about public speaking because I was a champion public speaker.
Oh
and it's like Yasmin's tips on public speaking.
Wait, no, look at you. What? Stop. Stop.
Yeah.
This is so crazy to me, like, you moving to Australia and, like, the beauty standards being different.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like, look at you. You're giving, like...
No, it
like
was...
supermodel.
Was not... Was
like...
Did not get invited to formal once.
Like, is that insane? insane. Like having that like kind of like
Oh my god, yeah.
That 360 of, I'm sure that there's like people that you went to school with that have like come back into your life and be like, hey.
Oh yeah, they're like, I can't believe you're in fashion.
And you're like, what do you mean?
Well, you know, I signed with IMG was a massive thing because I was like, what the fuck? Like, never in my life did I think I would be signed by IMG models. Like, what? Like, I've never been. I'm not trying to like sort of wallow in self-pity or whatever, but I was never like I never thought I'd be a model. Or I never thought I'd be with IMG.
I guess ending the podcast, I always like to ask the same sets of questions to everyone. Rapid fire.
Yeah.
But also not rapid fire, just answer it however you feel.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. If you had one day to live,
gosh. Okay.
What would be your last meal?
Oh, sashimi.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Specifically from Maizakaya in Surrey Hills. Like, I actually take people there all the time. My friend Irie showed it to me. And there is just something about fresh sashimi on like ice. With a little bit of soy sauce, a little bit of wasabi.
Oh, yeah.
Oof.
Okay. Who has inspired you the most?
Right now, Nadia Lee Cohen is a name that comes up a lot. It's because of the reasons that we talked about her being able to merge being a director and I don't know if she's got an influencer, but, you know, being front-facing and behind the camera. But I think, you know, Annie Leibovitz was one of the first photographers to really impact me. Obviously, she's a woman, and I really loved how cinematic her work is and like how she does a lot of composite stuff where it's like a frame within a frame. But yeah, like Annie Leibovitz was one of the first photographers to make a really big impact on me because of the way she was shooting fashion with this kind of homage to cinema. And then obviously David LaChapelle, like I mentioned, Heaven to Hell. So I think photographers have been massive influences on me. And then in terms of cinema, like I reference a lot of what I studied at uni. So I would say it's less so like one person and more actually the curriculum at UTS for media arts and production. Like we covered Spanish cinema. So we talked about Pedro Almodovar. We covered, you know, Alfred Hitchcock and how he used suspense to create fear and how he used music. And, you know, I referenced Vertigo a lot when I just recently did that. Like I said, you know, the 5 obstructions, like all the stuff that I was exposed to at the curriculum that I did at UTS. Anyway, that was a really long answer to your question.
Recently,
I
don't know if I would like say go back to uni, but I really missed the learning aspect of it. And I found this like old textbook from like my uni days and it was just like on communication and I kind of want to like read it again, but I miss that space that it like fostered to just be able to, you know, learn from people who knew more than you and be like surrounded by like other people who were also not all the time like completely like interested, but kind of had that curiosity and that and like the discussions and whatnot. So I do kind of miss uni days.
Oh yeah, and I think I seek out people who can be educators for me, like, and it's like one of the most attractive qualities about a person for me actually is someone who can teach me things, especially on that sort of higher intellectual level, anything to do with art and cinema, because it does get to a point where you actively have to watch things again and you actively have to seek things out. I remember like just before I graduated uni, you know, JSTOR, like the academic journal, sort of that. I remember being like, oh my God, I have to download everything on here so that I can keep reading academic journals after uni. And like, I still have them somewhere on my computer. And I'm like, fuck, I got to go back and read that journal. Like, you know, because I'm addicted to like knowledge. Yeah. It's very Sagittarius. We're very like, I need to know everything.
I love that. Okay. What questions did I ask? Okay, if you could have a dinner party and invite like 2 people, living or dead, who would they be?
I'm literally looking at my bookshelf because that's going to give me inspiration. I want to say Diana Vreeland.
Who's that?
She was the editor of Vogue, and she was the pioneer of like the Met Gala. And there's a documentary about her on Netflix.
Like before Anna Wintour?
Yeah.
She was the, like back in the...
Yeah. and like the heyday of Vogue.
Yeah.
And was like so revolutionary in the way that she saw fashion and editorial and design and everything. Like, she was a real... She changed the game. So Deanna Vreeland... And
is she still alive?
No. The doco's great. You should definitely watch it.
Yeah.
And then a more obscure one, which has come from a documentary, Vivian Maier. So there's another documentary called Finding Vivian Maier. And essentially there was like an auction and there was all these negatives and a lot of film that hadn't been developed yet. They just found it in a house and it went for auction. And someone was brave enough to just go, oh, I'm just curious, I'll buy that. And then started scanning and developing all these negatives that no one had seen in however many years. And there were all these amazing street photos and they had to try and identify the photographer. And they think it might be a woman named Vivian Maier who was the nanny at the house.
Oh, wow.
That was taking these amazing photos.
Yeah.
So I'd love to have dinner with her as well and go, what was motivating you to take these photos? And she must have had to have kept it a secret. And what did she think was going to happen? How does she feel about the fact that we've now made a documentary about her and posterity?
Oh my God.
So Deanna Vreeland and Vivian Maier, I think, both dead.
Love.
Yeah.
Amazing. If you could spread one message to the world, what would it be?
My message to the world would be to prioritize community and people and meeting people. Because there's that saying, it's like, people will forget what you did, but they'll never forget the way that you made them feel. Yeah. That's always stuck with me. And that's something that I try my best every day to live, Like, make people feel good. Or make people feel seen. Or make people walk away from a conversation with you and go, that was fun. I learned something or I thought about something.
How do you balance that, like, intuitive act or feeling of like making other people feel good, but then also not giving yourself away, if that makes sense? In terms of like, I feel like sometimes when people make other people feel really safe, it's like, how do you like also accommodate yourself in that same way?
I'm not very good at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. I'm like, actually trying to work on that one. Yeah. That's one I'm working on with my therapist. Yeah. No, it's a problem. It's a problem because
as a child it feels like,
oh yeah.
Like, yeah.
Okay.
And not to like.
No. It's
not to clock you.
Yeah. You. Okay. All right. We're gonna get real for a second. It means that I give myself completely to other people and I hurt myself in the process. Because I'm like, here's everything about me and I want to hear everything about you, and also you can discard me whenever you feel like it. And then another thing my mum used to always say is, you teach people how to treat you. And I think that sometimes I teach people that, hey, you can just use me as a vessel for whatever you want.
Yeah. Okay. What's the best piece of advice you've received?
Best piece of advice I've ever received, or something I guess I keep coming back to, is again, it's my mum, and it's like so done, but it's like every problem has a solution. So my mum pretty much raised me with this like very unshakable, like, all right, what's next? Okay, that didn't work, go that way. Like, like constantly ready to pivot. It's good and bad advice, I will say, but I think it's the thing that's kept me going, certainly in a career sense. It's like, all right, I'm feeling insecure and uncertain right now. What am I going to do next? And a lot of how I figure out my next step is talking.
Yeah.
So
me too.
Yeah. When I feel stuck, I just hit up every person who I admire and I go, can I have coffee?
Yeah.
And I had a really good chat yesterday with somebody who I admire, who gave me really good advice. So yeah. Keeps you out of being in a rut.
Yeah. Yasmin, actually, I don't even know if I actually even introduced you on the podcast. I feel like we literally just started talking.
We did. We just went straight into it.
We just like went straight into it, but I feel like by now, you know, Yasmin, my friend, and such a beautiful person. Thank you so much
Aw.
for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy that we were able to do this. Like,
Me too. And it ended up being the right time as well.
Yeah. And we've been talking about it for so long. But also I just knew that it was going to be amazing because every time I see you, like, we always have like something to say, you know? And you're a person that I'm able to just, I feel like we are able to just kind of like sit with each other and just be like, you know, give each other space and listen. And it's like but
we're learning constantly. Thank you.
Oh gosh.
Look at this setup. Cynthia's literally learning.
Literally, like
the cameras and the mics.
Like having to stop every like 30 minutes because the camera
but it's amazing.
turns off, and I don't even know if these microphones are really.
But you're giving it a shot.
But I'm giving it a shot.
And it's the process.
It's the process. Yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for listening. I'm so happy.
Yes. And you got to be in my apartment for the first time.
This looks so beautiful.
Yeah, it turned out good.
Stunning. Bye, guys.
Bye.